Welcome to the Devin Nunes podcast, breaking through the political noise, separating fact from fiction. From the San Joaquin Valley, the breadbasket of the solar system. Here is your host, Devin Nunes.
Welcome back to the Devin Nunes podcast. This is my first podcast after the election disaster. Now, I will have to say that I warned many of you. I wrote about it in my book, Countdown to Socialism. I was hoping to avoid it, but we are where we are. We're here. One of the main things I talked about in the book was big tech censorship, tech tyranny. Several months ago, I joined Parler, and I asked all of you to join Parler. I know now many of you are joining Parler and Rumble. I'm looking forward to, in the coming days, I'm actually going to have on the Rumble CEO, because what's happened since the election is I think there's been an awakening across the United States of America, and that is the American people have now realized that they're being censored on the internet and by big tech. And so thankfully, we have a few entrepreneurs out there that have developed platforms that are allowing an open space on the internet. And so we're going to have back on. It's actually been one of my most successful podcasts that I've ever had, the most viewed and the most listened to, and that's with the CEO of Parler, John Mates. Welcome back again to the show after the election. Why don't you just give the story? Because I know you've been now featured in the fake news New York Times and all the other fake news sites. They're trying to attack you for, I don't know, you're probably a racist, and I'm sure many other really bad things, I'm sure. But my audience knows that that's not true. But your life has really changed. Parler's life has changed forever since Election Day. Can we talk just a little bit about what's been going on?
Sure. Thank you for having me on again. And the election has really kind of stirred the pot a lot. People are jumping ship like crazy. So we have seen what I could only describe as exponential growth. And before the election, we were seeing about 500,000 people on the app a day, which is an awesome number too. But now we're seeing 4 to 5 million people per day. And it happened so quickly in a 48-hour period. And so this is really good growth for us. But what it is a sign of is that Facebook and Twitter are kind of taking a very biased approach online. And so that's lost people's trust. People have also lost some trust in the media over the last few years. That's an understatement. And I think they're looking for somewhere where they know they can just feel like they're getting access to information, or they can say what they'd like without somebody trying to manipulate them. And that's exactly what we do. We just stay away. We don't get involved. We're a neutral town square, and we just provide a service. And I think that's why people really appreciate what we're doing, and we're very transparent about it. So even today, we had some rumors flying around on Parler about that they theorized that George Soros owned Parler. It was awesome. Well, I said,
I saw that. Where the hell does that come from? I mean, just so everybody knows, George Soros does not own Parler, okay,
no,
or Rumble for that
Parler.
matter. I mean,
he has no association.
Think about it. I'm one of the first guys in Congress. I am the first guy in Congress to promote people moving over to Parler, so you're not going so you won't be censored. So trust me, I would not ask anyone to go to Parler or Rumble. I checked them both out beforehand to make sure that not only there was no ownership by any type of left-wing activist, but also more importantly, no foreign government entity of any kind that could raise some questions there. So no, John, you're a red-blooded American, I think originally from California. Now you're working out of Las Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, and dispel this Soros thing for us. How did it pop up?
Well, it's just something that people do. There was a photoshopped image of Fox News supposedly reporting it. Fox didn't do that, and it's false. But it's just every time people feel the pressure, they're like, oh wow, Parler's becoming a threat. They've got huge numbers, lots of growth. So they're like, let's interfere with that and come up with a story. And I'm giving them a thumbs down, because that was really a lackluster effort. Like, they could have come up with a better story. I mean,
Well, the other thing that's kind of funny is when I first made the move, and I announced it on all the other on Facebook and Instagram and the Twitter sewer, and it was amazing that all these freak show trolls followed me over. But then one of the things that happened to them that they realized, what you cannot do on Parler, you can't just create a bot farm. Yeah. And so on Twitter, all the bot farms moved over to continue to try to, get on there and slander and practice defamation and actually tried to cause you problems too, by putting up pornography and things like that you don't allow, because you're not like Twitter. You are you keep a very clean site. So how did this, so when you get past, so this Soros thing kind of has died down now, have you put it to rest?
Oh, yeah, I made a parlay today, basically mocking the conspiracy theory. You just got to have fun with it. You can't get offended at these things. You never feed the trolls. So I just kind of put it down gently, and everyone thought it was funny. We had a good laugh, and we're moving on. So hopefully it doesn't do any actual damage, because it is a pretty silly thing. The other one they did is they said Obama owned the company, and that was about a week ago. So they did that one, and then they followed it up with this one because that one wasn't effective. So they just tried changing the name. So all of these are false. And I anticipate it's only going to happen more in the future anyway. And to your point,
go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
To your point about bots, back in June, we had a really big attack of a lot of, because when you started promoting it earlier this year, you had a lot of trolls that followed you over, and which is great. And some of them actually ended up staying and making legitimate accounts and actually having conversations. So it was actually a good thing. And we, predicted that would happen. But the ones that continued to troll and they'd throw, pornography and nudity and nasty like fecal matter in the comment section, it got so out of control really quick. And of course they got, banned. You can't do that. And
because you enforce, you're using, just so everybody knows, Parler is a free and open space, but what you're using the long, tried and true standard FCC guidelines that would be the same guidelines for cable television, for example, right?
Yes. Yeah. Basically, the idea is if you can say it in public and you can say it on cable television, you're good. We even have, since June, added an extension, which is the sensitivity flag. If it is not something you'd put on cable television and not something that would be okay in the middle of a town square, you can hit the sensitive button, and that's your private square, right? So that's like anything that you couldn't do in public, that you hit the sensitive button and you can do it. So there's no real ambiguity here. It's not like, oh, is this or is this not okay? Is this being fact checked or not? No, we don't do any fact checking.
You're not doing any fact checking. No. And you're not going to be coming on there and saying, oh, this might have to do with the election, therefore it's sensitive. Here you have hundreds and hundreds of Americans coming forward with questions and concerns about the election results. And, I just want to say clearly to all of my listeners on the podcast that we have a system in this country that's worked for many, many years. You count all the votes. You certify the election. Even Joe Biden actually said that in the first disastrous debate with Chris Wallace. On the first disastrous debate, Biden even said that you have to count and certify all the elections. So the fake news narrative is out there. All the major news media companies are going with it, that somehow the election's been called. Look, nothing has been called until all the votes are counted. We're still counting votes out here. If the elections, and when I say out here, sorry for those of you who don't know, in California. And so the election will get called for a candidate, but if it's too close, you will have recounts. And that's what's going to happen in a lot of these states. So there's a lot of irregularity here. But the main thing, and why you're on here, John, is that on Parler, you're not, when I put up something about the election, you're not censoring me, correct? Or anyone else?
No, we don't get involved whatsoever. We're a neutral town square. The perfect example of is Section 2, for those who are familiar, a Section 230 exempt company. A perfect example. We don't get involved. This is up to the community. People can have discussion. We trust that people will have that discussion and figure it out on their own. Now, this is completely contrary to what I think is extremely hypocritical of Facebook and Twitter, and I'm going to throw Wikipedia in there too, because it was only a few days ago that they were taking down anything President Trump said about the election and saying it's false. It's too early to call. And now Biden has already changed his bio on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere, saying he's the president-elect. And that is, by all means, that is without a doubt, factually false. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. It is factually false because he's the presumptive nominee, but not one delegate has been cast, right? And just like you had just mentioned, they're still doing legal battles, retallies, these things. So they are actually, introducing bias by fact-checking one side and not fact-checking the other. It is bias, and there's no other way to put it. And the reason I threw in Wikipedia is they actually changed their definition to what president-elect means on Wikipedia so that Facebook and Twitter and all these people could justify allowing Biden to have it. It's really funny.
Sadly, I don't use Wikipedia either. I don't use Google. For my listeners, they know I don't use Google. I don't use Wikipedia. I never click on any major news organization's website, period. No fake news. I never even give them one click. So I'll have friends that will send me an article from the Washington Post or New York Times or one of these mainstream places, or a news clip. Sorry, if you send it to me, I'm not going to look at it. Period. Mm-hmm. I'm just not going to look at it. And that's what I advise everybody else to do. And I try to continue to get my colleagues to not go on. Don't give quotes to these places. Don't go on television with these places. It's not all you do is feed the beast. What you do is you give these places that don't deserve credibility. By being a conservative voice on there, you're giving them credibility. And I should say, John, just so people know, this Parler is not a conservative. It's not a conservative company. You're not just trying to woo Republicans over. You want to have everyone on there.
Yes.
It's just as I've described it, you're the last beacon of hope on the web for those of us who have nowhere else to go. And I should say, this is very, very odd, but I had the same thing happen on Rumble. So Rumble is an alternative to YouTube. When I was on YouTube, I've been on YouTube for a long time. Hardly anybody was able to watch my video. They couldn't find me. Going to YouTube, couldn't find it. I mean, now on Rumble, I already have over 100,000 subscribers on Rumble.
Yeah,
right?
Didn't you have like 10,000 on YouTube or something?
Yeah, and I had like nothing on YouTube, and it still sits there with nothing. So how does that happen? But here's another example. Now that you've added so many users, okay, I've been on Twitter. I've been on Twitter now for, I don't know, since 2009 or something. Not super active, but I'd say I would be fairly active. And for a long time, I was fairly active. But now I only go over to Twitter to tell people to come and find me on Parler and Rumble. But how is it that after 10 years or more on Twitter, I have 1.2 million followers, but now on Parler, you guys have now you've gone kind of so-called mainstream. A lot of Americans that are on there with users. I'm like almost at 2 million followers. Yeah. How's that possible?
Well, I think I don't know what they're doing over there with their algorithms.
I know.
I know, but I don't know what they're doing over there with their algorithms because it makes no sense. Mark Levin now has more followers on Parler than on Twitter. Now, that's crazy. There's still a lot more people.
I'm going to have double. By the time maybe people are watching this or listening to this, I'm probably going to have double what I have on Twitter. Yeah. After a decade on Twitter.
Yeah, and the other thing that people have noticed, media outlets have noticed, is they get more clicks on Parler than they do on Twitter and on Facebook and other places. We don't do anything to get involved, so if people want to click on an article, they can click on it. Now, Facebook and Twitter and the way all their ad models work and other places, the way the ad model works is they don't want you to click the article because they don't want you to leave. And so we don't care, right? We're giving everybody the tools. So if you want to advertise your news and you want to get clicks, that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And so people have been wildly successful with that on Parler, too.
Yeah, and the other thing you're not doing, too, that I like is it's kind of old. It reminds me of Facebook back in the early days when it actually worked, where you had all your friends on there, and it was just in chronological order by the time that it was posted.
Yeah.
And so, now on Facebook, I mean, I used to like to go there at least because I could see what some of my old friends were doing, or, you could see family, when somebody had, maybe a birth of a child or something, you could see it on there. Well, now I go on there and I just get garbage. Like it's not even worth my time being spent on there. But with Parler, the people that I follow, I'm just seeing that chronologically, correct? And that's not changing.
No, the only exception to that is when we have ads, they get inserted in. But otherwise, and that, you got to do something to make some money. So that makes sense. But otherwise, it's completely just chronological. And what I find interesting is, I don't know if you ever watched The Social Dilemma. Did you watch that?
I don't think so. No. What is it?
It's
a movie?
It's a Netflix thing.
But
Definitely.
see, Netflix is. Yeah, I don't do Netflix,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, you could. You know,
I can't do Netflix. It's too mainstream for me. Sorry, I don't do Netflix.
Well, I'll give you the summary.
Because the only thing I will say, just so everybody understands, I am on Amazon, but I really have no choice because my wife buys so much there. It's actually, I should say my wife's on Amazon Prime. But that's how you have to buy a lot of things nowadays. I don't have a choice. I'm at the mercy of being on Amazon. But I stay away from all that other stuff, Netflix and all that.
Well, the only reason I bring it up, because it did have a really left skewed bias, I could tell when I was watching it. So it definitely had a bias. But up front for about the first 30 minutes to an hour, it did kind of have a really cool visual that I liked. And it described, these other social media platforms as having like 3 guys in a control room, and they're hitting these buttons like, oh, we're losing his focus. Let's throw him this to kind of keep him engaged. Oh, we need to sell something. Let's try to persuade him by rearranging the feed to get him to buy that product. And so it was kind of a cool visual because that is very similar to what their algorithms are doing. They're changing things around. And so, something that I think everybody should support, bipartisan, is the idea of a humane social media, one that is neutral and one that isn't manipulating people or selling their data, which is really important about what we're doing.
Right. And that's what you guys are. I mean, that's why you're going in chronological order, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And it keeps it simple. So, look, you've, it's been amazing to watch what's happened to you. Congratulations on all of it. But you have had, just so people know, because I had a lot of people calling my office, reaching out to me. They thought they were actually being banned from Parler. But the truth is that, and you actually posted this on Parler, so I'm not giving away any trade secrets, but you had such a huge influx. I mean, this is still continuing to happen. You're having trouble keeping up. So can you just talk about some of the steps you're taking to, because you've been down a little bit, maybe walk through kind of some of the challenges you had, so the viewers understand that and Parler users understand that, and talk about what you're doing to fix it and rectify it in the future.
Yeah, sure. And so when you have really rapid growth, which you hope for, and you try your best to plan for, you can't plan for everything. And so, if about a couple weeks ago, right before the election, we said, okay, we've got 500,000 people on the platform a day. We're planning for 1 million people a day over the next month. And that's what we said a few weeks ago. So that's what we're going to plan for. Instead, we hit 4 million a day. Great news for the company, great news for growth, great news for everybody who loves free speech and freedom and getting access to everything and not having their kind of data traded. So it's great news for everybody, but it did tax the system immensely because we only prepared to double, not, go 8x. So pretty crazy. And we were down, up and down, and kind of flickering there for 2 days. Now we have rapidly learned from what was going wrong and fixed most of the issues. Today we have had, in the last 24 hours, we've had virtually no issues. We are upgrading the technology so that we can go even further. And we are preparing for another doubling of the active accounts. And so, you don't really know what you're going to hit until you hit that horizon. And unfortunately, what we're trying to build, like a platform like Parler, where content goes viral and is organically shared by the community and curated by whoever you follow, not by the platform, extremely difficult to build. And I would say it's more difficult than Facebook, more difficult than what YouTube has had to scale out, much more difficult than what YouTube has had to scale out, much more difficult than almost any other site, because you have so many organic nodes sharing this data and so sharing content. And it's very difficult, but we're managing it and we're scaling it and we're doing a really good job. And even while we talk, we're not only scaling the system out, we're developing new features too, which we should expect by January 1st. And my favorite, I'm going to try to hint the name because we're still working on the name and branding, and it should be out soon. But we're thinking of calling it Parler Dens, but we'll see. I don't know if I love it yet, but a Parler Den is going to be a place for people to get together, have conversations, share, specifically around different communities, groups, organizations. It'll also be a place for people to have their families share pictures with one another and not have anybody else be able to see it. So it's just the family, or it's just the family and friends. And so these are going to be called dens, where you can break out away from the mainstream, the main Parler platform, and you can break out and have your smaller communities. And it's
That's
your
great.
social media.
Well, and one of the things that I say, about that I tell people when they've asked me over the last several months that I've been promoting being on there and kind of enjoying the freedom. For sure, what you guys are, what Parler is, you definitely take the place of both Twitter and Instagram without question, and it's much more flexible. Because it essentially does it has all of those capabilities. Matter of fact, some people, when I'll put a picture on Parler, and they'll get all mad, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, look, this is my Instagram. Like, I'm not doing too much on Instagram. Like, I want to share, like, when I have a good, when I'm outside grilling on the grill or whatever, I put up a little video on Parler, because Parler's not just Twitter. Parler is a combination of those. And I think what you're hinting at here is you're also trying to make it so it can take the place of Facebook, or I'll say Facebook for you, also take the place of Facebook. So if you're on all three platforms, you can be at home in one place on Parler. Is that correct?
Yeah. Twitter's given us an inch, and we're going to take a mile. So we're doing that. Now we're going to go focus on Facebook, because that's something that we need to do. They've got a much larger amount of people on it. And, and I think that we really need to shake things up. I don't think it's okay for them to have all that control. They need a competitor, and that's how things work in the marketplace. Is you got to try to break in and take what you can do. And I think it's going to be better than what Facebook is doing, because it's awkward. You got to go to Facebook, you got to go to Instagram, you got to go to all of these different places. Why can't we combine it all into one, where you can have your events, you can have your pictures, but you can also have your family there secluded to the side. So it's not open and public, but you guys can still have your conversations. You can have that aspect. You can have your groups. You can have your organizations. You can have your topics of interest, like your car clubs or whatever else you're doing. So one place for everything. And that would be great. So then we can replace all these products with one place that believes in privacy and free speech.
Well, I can tell you one thing for sure, John, and that is that you are going to get, even if your product, and I think already it's much better and capable than Instagram and Twitter. I really do. I think once you learn how to navigate it, it's pretty easy. Even a guy like me has been able to navigate it and figure it out. I'm not going to say it's better, because Instagram and Twitter are both very, very good. But there's no doubt that Parler takes the place of both of those on one platform. And if you could take the place of Facebook and all be at one, the key here is going to be that there's tens of millions of Americans who are sick and tired of these tech oligarch. I can say it because on my podcast, jackasses. And a lot of them are from California. And this is not the way to behave. You don't get to take advantage of these laws, the Section 230 that you've talked about, and then come on there and act. When I say oligarch for a reason. These are people that are in bed with the single party. I've watched it here in California. They've been in bed with the Democrats here, who have one party control. And what they've engaged in this election, working with the media, and this is what I wrote about in my book and warned about, was that the media creating the content and then the social media filter deciding what you see equates to brainwashing. What these tech oligarchs did is they brainwashed the American people, and it continues to happen to this day. And I'm just thankful that that Parler's around and Rumble's around, because it truly is. I'm not trying to exaggerate. And when I first went over there, it was like, wow, it's nice to just breathe some air here and actually know the people that are on Parler are real people.
Yeah.
They're real people.
True.
And then you have, and I think the clever thing you have, and this is always a confusing part, maybe we'll just close with this. But a lot of people want to be anonymous, which is fine. They want to be anonymous. But there is also a way that you have that I think is very creative, and that's the badge system. So if you actually want people to know that you're a real person, and with your name and what have you. So walk through kind of the major badges that you have and how you earn those badges as people, because I assume you're going to get, matter of fact, you're probably going to fall behind on this because you're going to have so many people that want these badges. But walk us through the badge system real quick.
Well, the badge system is an idea that, if you send us a picture of yourself, it's a selfie, and you put some kind of ID, it can be a driver's license, passport, it could probably even be a library card. It's just something that says that, that's got a picture of you and can verify your name and some stuff. Compare the two, say, okay, that's a real person because they have an ID, they've got a face, we can see that their face, is real. Then we toss the ID, get rid of that. Keep the selfie on file because we want to prevent duplicates. And so having the ability to do facial recognition stops duplicates. So only one person gets one badge. We're going to work on that more in the future. But the idea is, and then eventually you get these badges that say you're a real person. And then if somebody has a badge, that is their primary account. They're going to represent themselves because they acknowledge that, I'm not anonymous online. We don't do anything with that data. We don't sell it. And like I said, we get rid of the ID once it's verified. It's just used for the verification process. But when you're online, you're not anonymous. No matter what you think, if you have a fake name, people know who you are. There's no way around it. If we wanted to store that information, which we don't do, we could, and you could figure out more about somebody from actually downloading an app and logging on than you could with their ID, which is a crazy thought. And this is probably just so people understand that you want to know that Dan Bongino, who's one of your largest, has the most followers, some of the most followers, or Mark Levin, or Maria Bartiromo, who, by the way, just made a big push, and you've been on her show lately. She's on Fox Business and Sunday Morning Futures. For those people that want people to know, hey, this is really me, you have a system for that, and that way people know who's been verified or not. Yes, and we're going to build on it more. But right now we have a few badges. One is the Rocket Badge, which is people who joined in 2018, which is an awesome badge. It's exclusive. And then you have
I should have. I joined. I was one of the early people to join, but not in 18. If I would have known you existed in 18, I would have joined.
It's funny. Some people joined in 2018 just to see it and then haven't been back since and then are now starting to be active again. And so they're going to get a Rocket Badge weirdly. But then you have the Gold Badge, which this is a celebrity, person, and this is who they say they are. And so you'll see more badges come out too, because there's one that I want to release, which is a orange badge where, it'll come out eventually, where you can click on the person's profile and you can click info and it'll show the selfie they got verified with so that you can double check that they are who they say they are and everything. So we got a lot of cool stuff that we want to do. So,
well, that's great, John. Well, look, John Mates, the CEO of Parler, congratulations. I'm going to let you go because you've got a lot of work to do. I want to thank all of my subscribers on Rumble and if you're listening to the podcast, we continue to grow. It means a lot to me. As many people know, I was off the air for a couple weeks. I think you understand why, because I do this kind of just in my spare time to keep everybody informed. But we had a lot of elections to run, including my own. So I want to thank you for your support, not only for me, but for my colleagues. Sent a strong message across the country to not only return a lot of Republicans to office, but also nearly overtake the House of Representatives, which hopefully will continue to chip away at that. But it means a lot to me for your continued support. So until next time, like I said, we're probably going to have on the Rumble CEO in the next coming days. But look forward to seeing y'all. John, thanks a lot.
Thank you, and congratulations on your win.
Thank you. It's Devin Nunes. Catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Devin Nunes podcast.
All right, man.
We invite you to subscribe
Thank you for having me on.
So you don't miss a single episode.
Yeah,
and remember, you can download this podcast on iTunes or at devinnunes.com.
Storm clouds been gathering so long, I don't know.
The darkness around us leaves no easy road.
We started wondering if every road dead ends our dreams. Wind whips the dust up and rain's pouring down.
Good people struggling in every hometown.
We've started wondering if we even matter at all. We'll take that hard road to happier days. 'Cause we've kept our American faith. trial by fire like this.
It's nothing hard-working family can't fix.
We've got the power to save it all here in our hands. We'll take that hard road to happier days. 'Cause we kept our American faith. As we, the people, free and strong, fight through the dark night toward the dawn. Freedom marches on. Now the hard road is waiting, but we're not afraid.
That's why they call her the home of the brave.
With a prayer and a purpose, we're already half the way there. We'll take that hard road to happier days. 'Cause we kept our American faith. Ooh, we kept our American. We kept our American. Ooh, we kept our American. We kept our American faith. Freedom marches on.
Paid for by Devin Nunes Campaign Committee.